Hey there, I'm Ari from the Tech Buyers Guru, and I've got a quick video for you here on the channel today. This is actually an update to a previous video I posted about AMD support for its upcoming Zen 3 CPUs on existing motherboards, specifically X470 and B450 motherboards, many of which are still being sold today. Now, if you caught that video, you know that AMD initially announced that it was going to cut off support for these motherboards when Zen 3 arrives at the end of 2020. This is despite the fact that it uses the same AM4 socket as is featured on these motherboards, and despite the fact that back in 2017, AMD claimed that anyone who bought an AM4 based motherboard would have support for new CPUs going through 2020. Of course, Zen 3 is landing in 2020, and rather than delay it for another year so that it didn't have to keep its promise, AMD has backtracked. It has listened to all the feedback. It has said it read the tweets, it watched the videos, it read the comments from enthusiasts like you, and it has decided to roll out firmware updates for these motherboards so that you can indeed use Zen 3 on your B450 and X470 motherboards when the new CPUs arrive at the end of 2020. This is great news, but there are a few caveats, some of which I did predict in my previous video. First of all, the new firmware flash will erase support for many older CPUs. That definitely means first gen Zen CPUs and probably means second gen CPUs like Ryzen 5 2600, Ryzen 7 2700X. A lot of popular CPUs that people probably still want to use will be erased from the firmware, and you will never be able to run those CPUs again on those motherboards. That's the first caveat, and I predicted that actually. Number two, you will not be able to reverse the flashing of your motherboard. It's a one-way flash. All right, so you can't then go back and decide, oh, I really want to run that Ryzen 7 1700 in this motherboard in my B450 or X470. You're not going to be able to do that. And number three, and this is the most interesting, AMD is actually going to require proof of ownership of a Zen 3 CPU. Now, I know some people are going to cry foul and say this is a money grab. AMD wants me to buy the CPU and prove that I own it, and all I want to do is flash my motherboard so I'm ready. And whenever I feel like buying that new Zen 3 CPU, I'll do it. But I don't want to do it right now, and I don't want AMD to pressure me to do it. Yeah, I get it, guys, but you know what? AMD has to do this. There are too many ways you can accidentally flash a motherboard. Maybe you don't read the warnings on the motherboard manufacturer's website. Maybe you're using an automated tool that kind of presents the firmware for you and doesn't really give you all the details. Like, hey, once you flash the firmware, your CPU will never boot again. That kind of warning may be missed in automated flash updates. So what AMD is going to do, and the logistics of this have not been ironed out yet, is that you are going to have to show some kind of proof of ownership. Maybe it's a serial number, maybe it's a receipt, maybe it's just you signing your name digitally and virtually saying, I know what I'm doing, give me the key to the firmware, and then you will be able to flash your motherboard. They have to add in this additional protection because the last thing they want to do is have a bunch of people out there brick their motherboards and then come complaining back to them saying, hey, I can't use my motherboard anymore, you issued a faulty firmware. AMD doesn't want that problem. You don't want that problem. So I appreciate that AMD has listened to enthusiasts, but is going to build in some level of protection so that you don't accidentally brick your board. All right, keep in mind, once that flash is applied, the older CPU you used to flash that board will never, ever boot again. All right, so I think you understand why, yes, you're going to have to physically or virtually turn a key and show AMD that you know what you're doing before you can do this. All right. And I think that's totally fair, and I applaud AMD. And, you know, in a sense, this is a little bit meta. I'm a little bit reporting on YouTube itself and on the way that social media has impacted AMD, but I think that's a great thing. And I think you guys should be excited, if you're AMD fans, that AMD's listening to you. There are not a lot of companies out there that would do that, especially companies as big as AMD that would change their mind and frankly spend time and money on a solution that they didn't really need to give, but they want to give it to you. So again, I'd like to hear your comments on this. Was this something you think AMD should have done from the start? Are you satisfied? Are they going above and beyond? Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear it. As always, I appreciate a like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.